wanting to get beyond the flat colors that you're making in your work and want to have more layered texture in your paint, many artists have shared with me how much they like the sense of layered color that creates a rich depth in the experience of looking at the paintings, as well as in the surface texture of the paint. So in this video, I'm going to share my techniques for how I layer both color and paint to create the sense of rich depth in the work. Hey everyone, welcome to Whole Artist Mastery. I'm Marianne Mitchell. And for about 40 years now, I've been a professional fine artist. And for the last decade, I've been mentoring artists who really want to own their voice, make compelling work, and know how they show up in the world as an artist. I so enjoy sharing my wealth of expertise, and I really hope that it helps you on your artistic path. So if you like what you see, you can share your support by subscribing to the Whole Artist Mastery YouTube channel and like what you watch. So it was really pretty early on in my artistic development that I realized I wanted to create layers of transparent and opaque color to create a sense of history in my paint surfaces. So I did this throughout, I don't know, the last 30 years with different mediums, oil pastel, acrylic, and oil paint. So the technique that I'm going to share with you today, I'm going to be doing in oil paint, but you can really apply it to acrylic painting as well. If you're interested in learning about how to work with oil pastels in this way, I invite you to go look for the oil pastel tutorial that I offer in the Whole Artist Mastery YouTube channel. Okay, so here are the essential tools that you need for creating layers that are both transparent and opaque and creating different textures of paint surfaces. So actually the first thing that you need is some sort of hard surface to paint on. Now I paint on panel. You can paint on paper, on board, or canvas that's without a stretcher behind it, that's either tacked up on a wall or on a board. I have found that painting this way on stretched canvas, the canvas is a little too pliable to really get the kind of effects that are most effective here. So, okay. Hard substrate. The next and probably the most important tool is a filbert. Now this is not just any old filbert. This is a Princeton brush synthetic filbert, synthetic bristles, 6100 series. You'll be able to see the link down below. And the bristles are soft, but at the same time sturdy enough that you can ruin them, and that is what I do with a filbert. And this is a size 16. It's important to get a 16. And so this is my ruined filbert technique that many of the artists who work with me are quite familiar with at this point. And the reason I call it the ruined filbert technique is that you're really not supposed to, although I'm unaware whether you're not supposed to or not, flatten it out like this. But what you want to do is open up the bristles so that it's nice and wide and fluffy at the bottom. Now you might be wondering, why do I do this instead of using a pom-pom brush, which are these brushes that have lots and lots of bristles that come out, look like sort of like an ice cream cone, that are crimped by a very narrow crimp. And I have found every single time I've used one of these pom-pom brushes, the bristles come out in the way that I work with them. So if you're experiencing that as well, then go get yourself a Princeton 6100 series number 16 filbert and ruin it. The last the next important item is a sturdy yet without much texture to it dish towel. So I have found that IKEA sells a pack of, I think, 4 or 2. I am unable to remember at this point in time, for $2. Anyway, you can get a fair amount of dish towels for very little money from IKEA, and they are great because they're just the right weight of cloth, and they're without surface texture that's going to create any sort of lines or leave any nubbles from the fabric in your paint. So if you're without something like this, go to either your nearest IKEA or go online and order them. They're great. Little plug for IKEA there. And then the next thing is some sort of squeegee or catalyst wedge. I have 2 different kinds of squeegees here. One I order from the Cold Wax Academy, and so, by the way, shout out to Rebecca Kroll for starting this whole movement of using these squeegees. I'm not sure she started, but she has made it possible for many painters to buy her squeegees, and they're quite effective for this technique as well as for cold wax. And a note to cold wax painters: if you're working with cold wax, you can work with these tools the way I'm working with them and incorporate that with your practice in cold wax. Okay, so I'm going to move on over to my palette, and I'm going to start showing you how to create layers with these particular tools. So, and now one little note. So live TV here. I realized a minute ago that the other camera was had yet to be turned on, so I went ahead and did this orange here, thinking that you all were watching me over there, which in fact the camera was off. So you might notice now that there's orange here instead of white. So we're going to pick up where I left off, which you actually are unable to see what I did because, you know, I'm a one-person show here. So, okay, we're going to go over here, and you can see where I am in my palette. And I'm going to, let's see, well, we already have orange there. Let's see, what can we put on top of that? Well, let's go back with some white on top of that. And I'll put a little bit of white down. And let's try a little bit of purple in that white. So do this, and this is going to be an interesting color. It will yield a muddy color because purple is the opposite color of yellow/orange. And when you mix opposite colors together, they create muddy color, or what I call complex color. So I'm going to put 1 little drop of walnut alkyd oil, which is the medium that I'm currently using. And if you're an acrylic painter, you can use some sort of liquid medium, whether it's gloss medium or matte medium. Just 1 drop here, just to give it a little more spreadability without it making it thin. And I'm going to come in with my filbert here, which I already ruined with orange, but I'm going to clean off the orange here and open it up like this. Come in here, pick up the paint so that it's on the bottom of my bristles, then come over here and splay the bristles in a circular motion like that. It's actually creating a rather pretty color. Which is great because you can actually see the orange showing through. I'm going to put a little bit more on. The other way to do this is to make a little more paint here. So you can see I'm going to pick up, this has some orange in it. So we'll use my scraper here, a razor scraper, to pick up the paint. Put a little more white down and mix up some more purple here. One little drop of liquid. And I use walnut alkyd at this point oil because I like the consistency of the walnut oil, and the alkyd makes it dry a little faster. So again, if you're doing this with acrylic paint, you can use a liquid medium. Okay, so now I'm going to pick up the squeegee and run it through the paint like that so that there's about like that much on here, and pull it across like this. And then if I go straight up and down and pull it more with a little more strength in my wrist here, you get more of an opaque quality, but you can still see the orange showing through. You can also come through now with your ruined filbert and start to do this. The paint's a little thicker when you apply it with the squeegee, and you can see less orange underneath. So this is where I can come up here and spread it up here. This is where the towel comes in handy. So I'm going to take my dish towel and make a pom-pom like effect here by holding the whole towel in my hand so it doesn't hang down and get in the way of the paint. And you have this ball, like a pom-pom ball. And now I'm going to rub the paint so that you can sort of see the gray underneath, the orange and the purple all working together to create this effect, which is much richer than if I had mixed this color and just put one flat color down. So I'm going to come in here, pull this away a little bit more. You can see the orange showing through. Now it has this sort of salmony color quality to it. And I can bring in the squeegee, and this works, as you know, if you're a cold wax painter, extremely well with cold wax. I choose to paint without cold wax because I like the slightly more luminous quality that the paint has without cold wax. I've had some interesting discussions with cold wax painters who say that that's an untrue statement. However, I have developed this technique without cold wax. So whatever works for you is the best way to paint. So you can see in the close-up photograph here the sense of luminosity that really comes through these layers of paint, and how this color down here has a depth to it because it's made with several different colors working together in layers. So the last technique I'm going to show you is starting with thick paint and creating texture at the beginning that when it dries, either with oil or acrylic, you can go back in with thin layers and the towel to rub the thin layer of paint into the thicker layer and get some really interesting qualities that can enhance the sense of depth and richness in your work by being able to see the layers working together. So I'm going to take this white here and mix it into the purple, and I'm not going to put any medium. I want this to be really thick. I'm going to use the squeegee to apply this. pick up a lot of paint here, like that much. And then come over here, and where shall I put this? I'm just going to put it down like this. And that makes some interesting effects right there. But I'm going to use a little bit more. And then I'm going to come in with, and this is one tool that I neglected to mention a few minutes ago. This is a natural bristle brush, Princeton 5400 series, bright, so that the bristles are a little shorter and a little more stubbly. And I can really push this paint around like this. So I can go backwards into it and create some interesting texture here that I will then let dry and then come back into it after it's dry. So it takes, with oil paint, it takes a little while. With acrylic, you know, probably about a half an hour to an hour, depending on where you live and how dry it is or wet it is. And then you can come, you know, just go to town. It's really fun not worrying about what's, you know, what you're making here. You're just having fun pushing the paint around. That's what I'm doing right now. And I'm going to leave this texture in the middle here, which I'll show you a close-up of in a minute. So that's a wonderful way. And again, you can do this with cold wax or without cold wax. So I hope that you find this illuminating. I'm going to show you one more piece that is a finished piece where you can see how these techniques work together. So I'm going to show you two examples. It's actually the same painting, but two different images that are really good illustrations of these two techniques working together. So the first image that you're looking at is a much earlier version of the finished painting. And I started out by using thick paint, just as I did here, and making all different kinds of marks, pushing the paint around with the natural bristle bright brush and letting that dry. And then I came in with black paint, a thin layer of black paint, and painted over the whole painting, and then started to rub the black paint into the dried white painting area so that you can see at the bottom the shape that came out of that whole process has some really interesting crevices that are black showing through. It's almost like an etching process where you rub the ink into etched lines on the surface. And you can probably tell if you're an etching person. I have no idea what I'm really talking about. But anyway, I did a little bit of that in high school. So these layers of thick and thin paint create the qualities that you're looking at now. And then in looking at the finished painting, you can see how the ruined filbert technique and the stippling that has created creates a richness both in the color and the surface texture. So I really hope this was helpful. I'd love to hear your comments, any questions. I'd love to answer them in the comment section below. And I hope this helps you move from making flat paint, if you want to move out of that, into a layered, richer, textured kind of quality, both in your paint and in your colors. And by the way, there are other videos that focus on both color mixing and what I call color sandwiching, which is essentially layering colors in similar ways that I'm talking about here. But color sandwiches are a way to create real rich depth of color. So go check that video out. A couple others have to do with color. And enjoy. Have a wonderful time. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.